So we started off by seeing how we could enable the grub recovery mode. This was just a simple mechanism whereby we could then go through and have grub automatically create the entries for the rescue target for each one of our kernel entries. So to enable this, we just needed to go through and edit the etc default grub file using whichever editor you feel comfortable with. We need to look for the line grub disable underscore recovery and make sure that it's set to false. By default it's set to true. And remember, this is the double negative situation, so setting it to false means that we are enabling those recovery entries. We need to regenerate our grub configuration, and don't worry too much about this. We're going to see more on grub when we get into our next module. But with this then we ran the grub2-make config or mkconfig command and specify the output file to be our grub configuration. With this done, then on reboot, for each one of your kernel entries that you have within grub, you should also see an entry to go into the recovery mode. The recovery mode, all of that is the run level 1 or our rescue target. We also saw that we could recover from our lost root passwords. And first off, we have to boot then to our init ram fs. So we edit our grub menu. We can do this dynamically at the command line. We locate the Linux 16 entry and we append to the end of the line rd.break and enforcing equals 0. Remember though that we do have to make sure we've also removed the quiet and RHGB entry. As we then boot, so we can use Control and X to boot, we'll be prompted with the switch root prompt. From here we need to remount our root file system, which is currently mounted to the sysroot directory, and we're going to remount it to read-write. Once we've done that, we can change our root directory to be sysroot. From here we can set our password, and we exit back to then the switch root environment. From here we reset the sysroot directory to be read-only. This is to protect the root file system, and then we can continue with our boot process. So we just type exit and that will continue with the boot process. Once we have booted up, we need to then log in, and as root we can then restore con on the etc shadow file. This is where our root password is stored, and it's been edited outside of the environment of SE Linux, so we need to set the correct security context for etc shadow. With this done, we need to reverse the setting that we did with enforcing equals 0. That allowed us then to be able to boot with SE Linux errors. Using the setenforce 1, we then put it back into its normal enforcing mode and our system is protected, and we know the root password. Next up, we're going to look at more details of how we can then manage and work with our grub2 environment.